Hi everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. So today, Chris and I haven't got the standard This Week in Watches news format. We've got an interview and we're joined by a very special guest, Justin, who is from the local Rolex AD here in Orlando. So very warm welcome to you, Justin. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Thank you, Chris, for having me. I'm very excited to be doing this interview and talk some watches.
Absolutely. All right. Well, should we kick it off with a wristwatch check then? So this should be eventful. Chris, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. So this weekend was having a hard time figuring out what to bring, but settled on my Zin 103 Bell and Ross, and sure Sam will post my cool Instagram photo that I had. It's got a worn and wound leather strap that I've got some good compliments on over on Instagram, and this is my chronograph and my go-to. So it was fun weekend racing around with the car up in the mountains, and then stopping for some fancy dinner, etc. So that was the pick for me.
Have you got any good shots of the Porsche?
Not yet, but soon to hit the Instagram.
Well, Justin, do you want to go next? What are you wearing?
Sure. So, this was kind of bad timing because my favorite timepiece that gets most of the wear, I have a 19018. It is a solid yellow gold day date oyster quartz. I actually just sent that to get the blue dial, so I can't show it, but I'm wearing my day date 36, or I'm sorry, date just 36 with the silver dial, smooth bezel. It's a great everyday piece. You can dress it up, dress it down. Can be a nice, weekend beater as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I might as well do mine. And bad news is we can't do Rolex update anymore on the channel. But the good news is that's because the Rolex came in. So I'm wearing the 41 OP41 in the blue dial. Justin gave me the call before, said he had one in. I had originally was really after the green dial. So I thought, I'll go in and check the blue. But the blue I wasn't expecting it to look quite as good as it looks. It definitely changes in the light. It's beautiful, really. And I know I've got an obsession about the date, but I'll probably get over it on this one. Yeah, nice. So I'll throw some pictures up here.
So you were Sam, you were originally going for the green, and then you decided on the blue. I know you had your a couple of options. I think you had asked for a couple, I remember.
When Justin and I first met in the Rolex AD, you said to me, didn't you, have a few choices because of the supply. I picked the green dial OP41 and then the date just with the silver dial. Sorry, not silver dial, the slate grey dial. And then one with the blue dial, but with the smooth bezel. And this one happened to come in first. And yeah, really happy with it. First Rolex I've ever owned. My wife's got one, but this is the first one I've ever properly owned.
That's probably good. It's better that the wife has had the first Rolex. That's good. you get points for that.
It's a mother's as well. So she's borrowed it from a mum. And it's a really nice one. I think it's a 26 mil date just with a pearl dial and then the Roman numerals.
Yeah. Because then it's no big deal. It's I'm just gonna get one for myself.
So you've had it only for a couple hours now. So what are your thoughts?
That's a great question. Initial thoughts were, as viewers to the show know, I'm really funny about metal bracelets. They either don't fit me well or they're just uncomfortable in some cases. The only one that I've ever found that fitted me really well was the Breitling B1 that I've got, but I'm amazed at the fit of this bracelet. I've filmed lots of Rolexes before, usually the submariners. I think this is the first OP, certainly of this size, that I've ever felt, and I'm amazed at how light the bracelet is and how thin it is. Do people say that to you?
When you compare it to some of the older bracelets, the new bracelet is definitely a little more substantial, with the solid center links. On the previous OPs, they did not have the micro adjustment, so this model, I think with the micro adjustment and the bracelet, I haven't really heard much bad feedback. Everything's been definitely really good. I mean, that watch is, in my opinion, probably the best bang for your buck that you can get. It's $5,900. It's got the 70-hour power reserve. That's actually the same movement that's in the new non-date Submariner.
Oh,
So
really?
it's very robust. A great everyday watch. And that blue is just absolutely stunning.
Justin, you were telling me some interesting things about the other colours. That I thought the green was the most sought after, but you were telling me that what people call the Tiffany blue, but it isn't Tiffany blue, is it? It's like the turquoise, the Rolex call it.
Turquoise. Yeah, well, so to be honest, the Oyster Perpetuals are probably, and actually not a lot of people know this, is one of the hardest watches at the moment to get. They were just released at the end of September 2020. So what happened with those is, as a company, we were actually able to take 20% deposits and actually order them for the first 2 weeks. And I don't think that Rolex was ready for the feedback that we were going to get, because we took so many deposits that within 2 weeks they actually cut us off.
Oh,
And
interesting.
since then, we haven't even gotten a quarter way through those deposits, because they're just coming in so slow. But definitely the most requests we have is for the turquoise, the green, and the coral red. Those are like the top three. My favorites. My favorite. I do love the green.
If you're new to Rolex, they're bold colour choices, aren't they? But they have done similar things in the past, haven't they, with the use of colour?
They have. They have. One of the dial makers for Rolex, I guess, was Stella. If you go back to and look at some of the Stella dials, like on the day dates, they've done like a taxi yellow, like the one that you see in the OP now. They've done that coral red, that turquoise. I'm not sure if I've seen anything like that before, but I mean that's just very unique.
Yeah, those. I mean, when they came out with the colors, it was certainly kind of hit everybody. We were discussing, this time around this year, and the new watches that the subtle changes that Rolex made, the movement change, and with the different things, and everyone was kind of disappointed. But I mean that intro with those colors was a big thing for them, and interesting to hear the backstory of how you guys took deposits and ordered them, and you're still working on that.
Well, we dived straight into the Rolex chat then, and we didn't go.
We did.
We dived straight into the Rolex chat. But Justin, I would love to. We normally kick the interviews off with how did you get into watches? I think first of all.
Yeah, sure. So when I moved to Orlando, I was just a college kid going to school and looking for a small part-time job, and walked around the mall. And I went straight into Macy's, and I had an interview on the spot. And she was like, "Okay, well, so where would you like to work? We have men's clothing, men's shoes, and we've got fine jewelry and watches." And so I thought, jewelry and watches, that's different. I do love watches. At the time, all I knew was Rolex, really. But so I immediately accepted. I said, watches and jewelry, that sounds really fun. And not knowing much about the timepiece world, at the time they had Tag Heuer, they had Gucci, Tissot, Seiko, Belova, and I fell in love with watches. And with Tag Heuer being our highest brand, I of course gravitated towards Tag, and Tag was kind of like my first love. Helped me grow that passion for watches. Quickly, they made me the Tag Heuer ambassador. Selling a bunch of Formula Ones, Carreras, and things of that nature. The Monaco, which is still one of my favorites. And from there, I just started walking around, because the mall at Millennia it's become like the watch mecca of Orlando. There's so many different stores. Breitling, there's Omega, there's Hublot, of course, Rolex. Mayors Jewelers carries a bunch of other brands. And I eventually landed a gig with Mayors, and they sell, down there we sold everything from Panerai, IWC, JLC, Vacheron, Tudor. They made me the Panerai ambassador. So I mean, I'm big into Panerai. I love the Italian heritage behind it. From there, moved up to Rolex.
Quite a tour there.
I don't know if it's just a Florida thing, but Mayors is Watches for Switzerland Group, is it?
They are. They're a part of the same company, Watches of Switzerland. So if you've ever been to any of the Watches of Switzerland, like in Soho, like that's one of the bigger boutiques in New York. We've got, I think, our flagship stores down south in Miami. But Mayors is, they're everywhere in Florida, from, down south all the way up north to even Georgia.
Up until your time at Rolex, which was your favorite brand to sell? You mentioned Tag. Any other favorites you had?
I actually got, I met a client that, I'm not going to go into detail, but he's very, very wealthy client. Like his bank account ends in a B, and he loved like high horology timepieces. So I've had the opportunity to sell like a bunch of Gégé Lecoultre, like gyro tourbillons, minute repeaters, and things of that nature. And not many people get to handle those watches, and when it comes to retail watches. But I've sold some high-end Vacheron Constantin as well, tourbillons, and just absolutely stunning pieces that it's like a once in a lifetime thing to actually try one on your wrist and be able to get the opportunity to sell one of those pieces, let alone multiple of them.
You have to specially order those in then?
If you've never purchased a Gégé Lecoultre before, of course you start with maybe a reverso here and there, perpetual calendar. And then, kind of like Rolex, you slowly work your way up to some of those finer pieces. And we actually cultivated the top collector of JLC in North America within a year and a half. And, yep. Wow. And yeah, so extremely blessed for that.
I feel like JLC is one of those brands that has the entry level, like you said, the reverso, that piece, but the move into their high horology stuff is quick and steep. So like they go very rapidly. Like there's not a lot in the middle. It's like, okay, well, this is $33,000. And you're like, oh, okay. All right. Can we go back to the other table?
Yeah.
Well, we'll go to the 50 and the 70 and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah.
Vacheron
seems to be getting talked about a lot more than I remember. Did you see an uptick in Vacheron?
You know what? I did. I left that store in the end of maybe beginning 2017, and it seems like the watch market really flipped on its head, like just like that overnight. But prior to leaving, to be completely honest, an overseas sale, it wasn't the easiest sale. It's not like it is today. Mm-hmm. At one point, I remember seeing, a blue dial chrono, a non-chrono. They all come with the different strap options. So you get a rubber, you get a leather, and you get the bracelet. And in my opinion, that's probably one of the nicest finished watches in the watch community. Is the overseas, and it wasn't the easiest sell. So they basically weren't flying off the shelves like they are now. I mean, now if you walk into the store and ask for an overseas, I mean, just forget about it. You're gonna be waiting a long time.
Do you think with the demand for Rolex clearly outstripping the supply, do you think it's made room for these other brands to really showcase themselves where perhaps they were more enthusiast brands, or certainly people that had more than one or two watches? I mean, you don't often hear of Vacheron being somebody's first watch that they buy.
I think so. If I didn't, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say, someone came in looking for a submariner and we don't have it, and then they go and walk across the street and get a like a Seamaster from Omega or something like that. I also think that some of the brands is kind of, following what Rolex does. in terms of availability, and some, a little bit harder to get. And it's made most of these brands become a little bit more exclusive because of it.
Interesting.
Chris and I had talked about this on the channel, that there's a lot of brands that are trying to emulate Rolex, but they don't play by the same rules. Omega, for example, Rolex has got its core watch collection. Omega it has its cores, but it also seems to do a lot of limited editions, or it might try some different variants. And I think it can confuse people, especially I did a video recently on the Speedmaster line, and I think there's something like over 100 watches that they sell that falls under Speedmaster.
Yeah, it's like Speedy Tuesday. You see a different one on Instagram, like, every single Tuesday. And it makes it difficult to keep up with it. I mean, in my personal opinion, I feel like that kind of hurts the Speedmaster in a way. That they release a special edition, like, it seems like every other day. Rolex has never done, limited numbered pieces. Really, all you see from them is like maybe a anniversary piece here and there. Like the anniversary Submariner, the original Kermit, or even the platinum the current platinum Daytona was the 50th anniversary for the Daytona. But yeah, numbered pieces, Rolex, it doesn't really do anything like that.
All right, let's get into the good stuff. Let's put them on the spot.
Go for it, Chris. If you had a question in mind.
Well, I mean, what do you think of our dilemma as someone who's an enthusiast? So I'm sure you have a handful of watches. I mean, I would assume. So as someone who's an enthusiast, what is your take? Can you help us out on your take of what we see when we walk in to the Rolex AD and the shelves and the cupboards are bare?
Sure.
How do you what do you say to that? How do you sort of help us out with that?
So when it comes down to it, us as sales professionals, of course, we want to sell watches. Sometimes, we get the client in there, and it seems like they may feel we don't want to sell them watches, but that's not the case. Of course, we make our money by selling watches, but it's truly the case of supply and demand. If they were to send us 1 million watches, we would sell them every single piece. But the process now is, you come into the store, you provide all your information, we add you to what's called a registry of interest, and we just ask for a little bit of patience, because as soon as it comes in, we'll 100% give you a call.
What's funny is that seems completely reasonable, but yet you tell that to a bunch of crazy watch nerds, and we start thinking about some sort of cabal, some secret handshake backdoor. Right, but tell us about the smoke and mirrors. Like what's going, like.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, I think that what really hurts the watch community as well is the overwhelming amount of watch flippers out there. Mm-hmm. It seems like they're kind of ruining it for all the watch enthusiasts, the people who, are celebrating, a graduation, or, just got a new job. Mm-hmm. It really affects those types of clients, because the reseller is just looking to buy the watch and then immediately turn around and just resell it.
Yeah, it's amazing that, I mean, this one is staying with me. This was, I turned 40. I know I don't look it, but I turned 40 in November. So this is a meaningful piece to me. I like the security of knowing that it will likely go up in value. But when you talk about you mentioned the turquoise dial to me, and it was rare. So I just had a cheeky look on Chrono 24, and the money they're going for, it seems almost intoxicating if you had one. It seems almost like, because I can't think of another brand, maybe Hermes with the Birkin bag, or where you buy something and immediately it goes the other way. You expect something to go down. Like if you bought a tag or anything like that, you've worn it, it's pre-owned.
Right.
But Rolex is it's built up such a mystique around it that they're going for a lot more after it. And I don't know how you could combat that as an AD. I mean, Chris and I have talked about implementing like blockchain technology or something like that, so you know who the owner is, and if you ever see that watch again, maybe it's the serial number or there's a NFC chip. Did I get that right, Chris? NFC or NFR chip in the watch, then at least you know. But I don't know how as an AD how you could ever possibly combat that.
I feel like that may be above my pay grade, but I mean, there's been so many different things thrown around, different ideas, but I mean, to be honest, I don't think that they've really figured out the right process just yet.
It feels, and I just thought of this analogy, it feels like you guys are selling out front row tickets to the concert, and you've got a number of front row tickets that are the seat value that the place gave you. So they're, $180, and everybody knows that the scalper can go and get $500, $600, $700 for those front row seats. And there's only so many front row seats that you can get. And so you guys are sort of stuck in this place where you don't want to hand out 15 front row seats to, this guy that's just going to turn around and flip them on and sell them. But at the same time, you're kind of in in a hard situation because you still want to make money. You still want to, so if someone did come to you and said, "Oh, I'll buy 5 seats" or whatever, and then, like you said, you have the dad who wants to take their kid to the show and wants to give them that like amazing experience to have front row seats, and they show up at your store and you have nothing for them, and so you guys are kind of in a catch-22 tough situation there for that. And then trying to figure out from your perspective how you can solve that.
Part of it is, I mean, don't get me wrong, Rolex is, and I'm not just saying this because I work for the brand. I've owned multiple. It just seems like there's just nothing better than putting a Rolex on your wrist and the emotions that it makes you feel as soon as you put it on. The accurate timekeeping. I've read out there that there's a lot of people who think that Rolexes are not accurate, but that is not the case. I have yet to see one that is not up to Rolex's standards. Sam, the current one on your wrist is +2, -2 seconds. So you follow that, and then you come back and let me know. How accurate that is. Yeah. But part of it, I also think is hype, because I've been doing this for almost a decade now. And I remember at one point there was a original Kermit that sat in my pre-owned case for almost a year. And that was a piece that we couldn't get rid of. We would have Submariners, we'd have Milgauss, you name it. And they, at one point, and this wasn't very long ago, I would say maybe 2015, 2016, and you couldn't give it away at the moment. I mean, not give it away, but it was a more difficult sell. But now it just seems like, because it's the hot watch and you can automatically resell it for double its value. Just for those reasons, some people want to just buy it and just resell it.
It's a shame for the watch community because, and Chris and I have talked about this countless times on the channel, is every person who's had a Rolex for 20 years, there was a reason why they got it. It was a promotion at work. It was when their child was born. They retired or something like that. They all have a story. Like everybody I know who's had a Rolex for any length of time, there's a story associated with it. Now it seems like that is beyond the reach of a lot of people because they are such. But you're right in what you say. I mean, I I went on. It's probably been 2 months, which is a fantastic. I kept in regular contact with you. You told me to give you options, and I gave you options. So definitely stick at it if you're on that Rolex AD list for sure. I think there's this perception of the sports models being almost impossible to get, the submariners and things like that. Is that the truth? Are they very hard to come by, even the standard sort of no date submariners? And
Today, 100% most likely. Yeah, definitely difficult to get. Prior to COVID, it wasn't as hard as it is today. Today, I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. The factory was shut down for 6 months, and it takes about a full year to produce a single Rolex. And with the 6 month shutdown, when they reopened, they were back at, I believe, like 25% for a couple months capacity. And on top of that, they just had a big release. As you know, with the Explorers and the Explorer 2, the demand is just sky high. It's hotter than it's ever been. And with that mixture, with the supply and demand, it is quite some time to get anything from the new 36 millimeter Explorer to a Submariner to a Milgauss to a Daytona.
Explorer was it wasn't controversial, was it? But I think people mentally built it up to be that there was going to be something really big done to the Explorer. And I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed that they didn't get that 50th anniversary one. Did you see that in people? Did you see a decrease in people asking for the new one, or was there no effect?
Clients were a little upset, and as were I. But it seems as if we go through this every single year. So yeah, I'm not very surprised by it, because you have everyone, thinking they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And it seems like Rolex always does the opposite of what everyone's predictions is.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wanted the blue one. We get a blue one every time. Yeah. I'm sure you get that every time. It's like, yeah, well, they didn't make the blue one this time. So sorry.
We don't do our own Rolex predictions. We just say what everybody else is predicting, because
we don't want to swerve into that lane. We're like, what are other people predicting?
Yeah. You wonder whether the way that, because people build it up so much, whether anybody will ever be truly happy with what they release. I know I wasn't a huge fan of that two-tone Explorer. I don't really understand it, but there's probably a person out there that looks at that thing and thinks it's the most beautiful watch they've ever seen in their life.
The new releases just started rolling in, and I did get to see firsthand the new Explorer 36 in stainless, and also the Rollersaur model. The 36, I think, is really nice. They're going back to their heritage. It has a very vintage feel to it. The steel and gold is not my favorite. It's still a great looking watch. One of the things I believe that a lot of people don't like is the taper all the way down to the buckle. The center links, it seems like they had made them a little bit skinnier. And the taper is just very small where the buckle is, all the way to the bottom links. Mm-hmm. But I mean, otherwise, it's a great watch. I'm actually thinking about getting one for myself.
Interesting you mentioned it, and you guys were talking earlier in the show about the bracelets. It's interesting because, like, if you compare a Rolex bracelet from the 70s, like where, on a 30, 36 or 34 watch where it tapers down. I mean, that watch was like, super thin, jangly metal, this sort of thing. And so now you have customers that are like, they want the look, but now you're like, listen, this is solid all the way through. Like, this is not coming apart. This is this is finished perfect, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, right, but it's just like really thin. And you're like, but that's what we thought you wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the things that I do admire about the Rolex brand. For instance, going back to our Omega conversation, it seems every single year, every other month, they're releasing a new model or a new, configuration, this and that. Whereas Rolex, all of their models are almost the same. What they've done is just every single year they've worked on making it better, making it more accurate, making the bracelet better, things like that. And that I think really sets them apart because they're really going for perfection, which is definitely a great trait that Rolex strives for.
Rolex is definitely slow and steady, wins the race, aren't they? Whereas Omega, when it has a hit, I think it partially comes as a surprise to them, like the original Snoopy I'm thinking of. But then they've done some huge releases that you never really hear of. The all titanium Aquaterra is a prime example of this. Not a handful, but I bet you their sales figures on that all titanium Aquaterra must be nothing in comparison.
And I've seen some of the, we're at the Omega boutique, and I've seen some of the high horology pieces that they've done with, tourbillon, movements, etc. And I mean, their escapements and etc. There's these crazy horology pieces that they've done that I feel you don't hear about. Like, I feel like, if Rolex were to do an open heart tourbillon, every single website on the planet that does anything with watches would be like, ships at sea, like, what is happening? And like full screen picture, right? It's full stop. But yeah, Omega can just like, oh yeah, this is our 15 piece, open heart tourbillon that, costs, the cost of a house, and it's fine. But, but I feel like they kind of do it to themselves because they'll try to just like capitalize. They're just like, what sticks, like throw and see what sticks, versus a method of, this is the Submariner. We're going to try to make this better every year or every 5 years, whenever we change we're going to put a better movement in it. We're going to put the better materials in it, et cetera, et cetera. So
has there ever been a model that you got in that you thought to yourself, oh, this is not gonna do well, and it did? Maybe I should expand that beyond just Rolex, but
I'm 100% sure there is. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. Maybe not with Rolex. Actually, you know what? Those new Panerai Duets, the ultra thin, it's like a dressier Luminor. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
The one with the controversy, it only had like 30-meter water resistance or something. Is that that one? And people are like, why would you do that on a dive watch?
Right.
Yep. Exactly. So it kind of has the look. It's much skinnier. They do a much smaller diameter case as well. I mean, when I saw that, I was just like, that this is not Panerai. This is a Italian, military dive watch, and so, some of the original divers are probably turning over in their graves, but surprisingly, I mean, from what I'm hearing now, and from when they originally came out, they were actually doing very well. The Panerai client, I think, was, they love their Panerais, but they wanted something a little bit thinner, something that will fit under a dress cuff, something a little more sleek, and they got it. And they've been doing well from my understanding.
Justin, have you ever seen any of the really kind of out there ones? I'm thinking of like the rainbow diamonds, or the one that was like the leopard Daytona, or
yes. So I've seen both. I've seen the Wildcat. I've seen the rainbow, which is literally like a unicorn. When you see the detail that goes into like sourcing those sapphires, and the way that it blends all the way around the bezel, it is absolutely stunning. I haven't had the luck to actually sell one yet, but I'm hoping, one of these days I'll be able to sell one. But that the rainbow, if I could own one watch, even though it's very blingy, it's still a Rolex, and they make it even though it's a dressy watch, they make it so it's still a practical everyday watch. You could still wear it every single day. The clients that we have sold them to, they wear them every day and absolutely love them.
On last week's episode, and we got a little bit of stick for it in the comments, we were talking about the prevalence of watch YouTubers reviewing super cloned Rolexes in the guise that they were doing good to the community because they were pointing out that this is how good the fakes have got. Our argument was that it can also work as an advert for those. I know you can't speculate on this, but it's got quite scary, I would say, especially around Rolex and things like that, these super clones. I mean, do you ever have people coming in the store asking you to authenticate Rolexes? Is that a service that you even do?
Rolex actually does not provide the authentication service. Really, the only way that you can 100% tell, let's say you get an absolute replica to the T, it has a, Japanese movement in it, it's keeping great time. You can't distinguish the difference between this or a real one. What I recommend is sending it out for a movement service, and if you get a quote, it's real. If they just send it back, then it's fake. But I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, but there are some out there that have slipped through the cracks, and I didn't even know.
So you sent them off for a service and they've kind of come back.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it. I mean, and that's not too expensive. I mean, if you think about the value of the Rolex, it's not too expensive piece of mind to have it, once if you're obtaining it used and you just want peace of mind. It doesn't seem too bad to do that.
Certainly. Especially when you're spending that type of money. You definitely want to have that peace of mind that, what on your wrist is 100% authentic.
Right. Yeah. And that was ultimately what Sam and I, we talked about how that sort of makes you feel with these fakes going around, but then it just comes down to for us and for most people, it has to be real. Otherwise you're just fooling yourself.
Maybe we'll do some merch with this on, but I always say you can fake the watch, but you can't fake the history and the romance that the watch company has around itself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we'll do some merch. Really odd, but so before we finish up here, Justin, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. If I'm new to watch collecting and I really have my heart set on a Submariner, so we've already talked about don't be afraid to go into an AD. We've already talked about have realistic expectations with some options, but is there any other advice that you'd give somebody about if they've got their heart set on a sports model?
The advice I would give is kind of similar to what I gave you. You came in, you wanted one or two pieces. Try to search the entire collection. There are other watches out there that's in the collection that are extremely nice as well. And give all of those options, and keep your mind open to maybe owning something a little bit different. But the more pieces that you are interested in, the sooner you can probably obtain one. For instance, let's say you are stuck on a stainless steel date sub, and there are already 500 people waiting for one. I mean, who knows when you'll get one. Definitely, just have an open mind and try to open up your mind into owning maybe a date just or something different. Even if you wanted to stay in the professional collection, maybe a Milgauss, maybe one of the new Explorers.
And not to put you on the spot with you mentioned a number there, and not to give, certainly without, too much detail there. Are we really looking at that level? Like you said, 500. Is that really we're dealing with those kind of numbers?
So, 500, that was just a number I threw out there. Yeah. But I would imagine it is in the hundreds. There are a lot of people out there for a Submariner. like also, even if you want just a Submariner, there's a non-date option, there's the date option, there's the Rollesaur Blue, there's the Rollesaur with the black dial. I mean, and those are all great options as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Even within the in the sub model.
Yeah, but the most important thing is we definitely just ask for the patience, because like I said, we do want to sell these timepieces. It's just a matter of getting them in the store and then getting them on your wrist.
Well, while we're talking about the store, do you want to give a shout out, give the details of where people can find you?
I am in the Rolex boutique at the Mall at Millenia in Orlando, Florida. My name is Justin. So if there's anything that you're after, I'm more than happy to help and help you obtain your dream watch.
Well, Justin, that's been great. Guys, let us know if you've got any questions in the comment section. Also, let us know what you thought of this upload. Justin, we really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
So thanks for watching and for listening over on iTunes, and we'll see you all next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.